But the word is, Isabel, that Elon Musk, having donated $2 million a week, $200 million in all to Donald Trump, he's a playmaker. He was a playmaker in the Trump triumph. I think he feels that with his money, he can help shape politics, change politics for the better. I think he has succeeded in America, and I think he's set his sights on Britain too. He worries about Keir Starmer. He loves this country. He doesn't like what Starmer's doing to it. Who does?
Elon Musk has joined hands with Nigel Farage as absolutely hates Starmer for ruining Britain.
Now, I hope they get that money. I hope he really does give them a lot of money because, as you and I have discussed before, Reform UK, with money, considerable amount of money and organisation, I think will change the face of politics in this country. And Labour are crapping themselves quite clearly, because don't forget, I believe I'm right in saying that Reform UK was second in 98 seats that Labour won, and they were pretty close.
Nigel Farage is on the brink of changing politics forever, and Musk is ready to donate a huge amount of money.
That the Labour government is now plotting to bring in a law that they think might prevent Elon Musk being able to donate any money to Reform UK. That must not happen, in my view.
Well, I think that will be very difficult for Labour, and very obviously an initiative that is born out of panic.
Starmer is terrified, and Labour is playing disgusting tricks to try and stop Musk from helping fund Reform UK.
Like the Tories and like the Lib Dems, has itself benefited over the years from very substantial donations from individuals, billionaires and so on, who are based overseas. I'm just looking at a list here and a couple of examples. Lakshmi Mittal, Britain's second richest man, the steel tycoon, gave more than $5 million to Labour up to April 2010. He was domiciled.
Keir Starmer and his cronies are nothing but a bunch of hypocrites who don't really care about election interference.
This is pretty desperate stuff, isn't it? Nonetheless, there'd be nothing to stop Elon Musk, if he wanted to, crack on with it before any such new law comes into force. And there's no limits on spending outside election periods. I mean, there are quite strict rules around what you can and can't do during campaigns, but, a party is free to lavish as much as it wants on campaigning and building infrastructure and building a party machine.
Does the desperate Labour Party think that they'll be able to stop Elon Musk from helping Farage?
What Reform UK doesn't need a fraction of this money to transform politics. Reform UK is brilliant at making a disproportionate impact with very small amounts of resources. So whilst I'm sure the party would be delighted to have any such donation, I think it can transform politics even without a absolutely gargantuan donation of the type that is being...
Whether or not the donation goes through, Reform UK is already crushing Starmer in the polls.
I wouldn't mind playing poker against Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner, because they're not very good at covering up their inner feelings, are they? This is blatant. It's obvious. They are, as I said eloquently, crapping themselves. Reform UK are on the rise, and they are biting at Labour's heels, and they are the opposition at the moment, because I have no idea what Kemi Badenoch is doing.
Starmer and Angela Rayner are shamelessly trying to sabotage Reform, and there's a sinister plan at play.
The House of Lords, if you remember, another one of Keir Starmer's bold election pledges. I will abolish that House of Privilege. I will abolish the House of Lords. He's all set to appoint 30 new Labour Lords, one of whom, I guess she won't be a Lord, she'll be a Baroness or whatever you call them, will be that ludicrous woman Sue Gray.
Starmer knows that his days are limited, and his secret plan is shameless cronyism. There's a reason why nobody is taking this idiotic lot seriously, and that's because they don't actually care about foreign interference in our politics. Starmer only wants to stop Nigel Farage. Unfortunately for Starmer, all his appalling schemes are being exposed.
The Prime Minister's been told to tighten the rules on party donations. Guess why? Because Elon Musk is threatening to bankroll the Reform Party into government.
It's funny, isn't it, what donations, what oligarchs, what big money in politics people are willing to get upset about. So when it's Dale Vince or whether it's the various
Lord
Sainsbury's, Lord Ali, of course.
You know.
This selective outrage is frankly concerning. For years, many foreign nationals have been donating to Labour and the Tory party without any consequences. Why was nobody getting mad then? We're seeing this kind of backlash only when Elon Musk, who Labour and Starmer hate with a passion, is trying to fund Reform UK. What's more is that a lot of this backlash is coming from the governmental bodies that are supposed to be unbiased and neutral. So, is there something else going on behind the scenes?
I mean, admittedly, the kind of sums that we've been talking about would eclipse any single donation that we've previously seen in the UK. But
the principles are
stunning. Absolutely. And there's also a kind of question here about, you know, how far are you going to go with this? Are you going to suggest that all of the money that is flooded into various causes, not just in Britain but across Europe, by various very wealthy people, are therefore illegitimate because they warp the politics and the kind of civil society of those places? But this is just a panic about reform and how well reform is doing.
Starmer and his gang have not only been receiving massive funding from billionaires, they've also been enjoying countless freebies and personal donations from them. Remember, the huge scandal where Starmer, Angela Rayner and Rachel Reeves were all found guilty of taking outrageously expensive gifts from Lord Ali. Now, all of a sudden, Starmer's being a massive hypocrite and opposing Elon Musk. Labour doesn't have a backbone or morals, they're just jealous and afraid of Reform UK.
Then why are you squealing now because they're now talking about 100 million? You're only really squealing about the amount rather than the principle of it.
And it'd be one thing if you're having this discussion absent this particular story. You know, you could say, you know, do we want to be in a situation where it's very easy for a foreign oligarch effectively to really warp the political landscape? But that didn't come out of nowhere, did it? It's always just in response to a specific political threat, which is why people don't take it nearly as seriously.
Is Starmer just throwing a temper tantrum? We've seen him behave like an immature child in the past as well, and this time things don't seem much different. The real problem is the amount of money that's potentially being donated. Labour can't stand to watch Reform UK receive a huge donation of allegedly 100 million. If anything, they're jealous that they won't be getting any of that money, and now grapes are sour for Sosofty.
Now, surely it's not for the Electoral Commission to advise the Prime Minister. Surely it's for the Electoral Commission to say, we're going to tighten the rules, isn't it? Isn't that their job?
Well, this is the thing. There's always this kind of unseemly back and forth between various sort of quangos and regulators and the people who are supposed to actually be setting the law. Because, again, it becomes a really grim situation, especially the Electoral Commission has got such a checkered history recently in terms of its biases against pursuing various Brexit campaigners and so on. There certainly wouldn't be the people you'd want to be drawing up these new rules, and you wouldn't.
Here's where things get shamelessly disgusting. Why on earth is the Electoral Commission, a body that's supposed to be unbiased and transparent, siding with Starmer? They're openly giving him suggestions to just ban the donation. If anything, shouldn't the Electoral Commission decide the policies or rules surrounding the elections? That is literally one of their jobs, but for some reason, they're entrusting the useless and incompetent Starmer with it. That just goes to show how even the Electoral Commission is cozy with Starmer's regime. Starmer's corruption doesn't just end there. The more you look into it, the worse it gets.
So they're basically trying to clip his wings, which looks really, to me, also like a very corrupt move, doesn't it?
Well, I think it's one of those things where if this was clearly across the board, that's a completely different argument. If this was stemmed by, you know, we don't really like big money in politics, so let's work out a way to root this out. This is just a knee-jerk response to one photograph taken.
Well, they're all panicking, going, how can we stop this happening? How can we stop Elon Musk from bankrolling Nigel Farage to the point that he wins the next election?
The mask is off, and Keir Starmer is showing his true colours. The supposed man of integrity is now behaving in the most shameful and corrupt way possible. All because Starmer knows that he will get shredded in the next elections, since everyone in this nation hates him. All of this could have been avoided if Starmer wasn't so tone deaf and listened to what the people were complaining about. Now it's too late, and given how miserable our lives have become thanks to Labour, it's safe to say that they won't be winning an election anytime soon, especially since Starmer has been hiding some dark secrets.
If they're going to start following the money, let's look at some of the dark money that they call it sometimes from the left, what they call, you know, say think tanks, like the IEA. People are always asking questions about, well, where does their money come from? Some of these environmental groups that we have in Britain are being bankrolled to the tune of hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds, much of it coming from the US, much of it coming from these kind of nutty, you know, green foundations that are set up either by the European Union or by, you know, crazy people in the United States of America. Nobody ever asks where that money's coming from.
As it turns out, Starmer and the Labour Party are involved with groups that are mysteriously funded from all around the world. Isn't that shameful and hypocritical? These climate groups that are being funded by billionaires that nobody knows seem to have had a significant amount of interference with our policies. Just look at the endless amount of money Starmer and Rachel Reeves are throwing away at useless climate change projects while taxing us into poverty, or how private businesses are being robbed and public trade unions are being awarded huge pay rises. That's Starmerism for you.
You know, the demonstration that goes on with Just Stop Oil, Extinction Rebellion, they're all funded by these kind of weird groups who are very wealthy.
No, absolutely. Many of them billionaires themselves. I mean, there was, especially when groups like Extinction Rebellion first kicked off, they were being bankrolled by various Californian billionaires who were worried about the green issue. So you do think that they would have more sense than to open this can of worms, because people would say, well, what about the people backing the various causes that you support?
This will not end well for Starmer and the Labour Party. On one hand, there's Musk's publicly announced donation, and on the other hand, there's the dozens of shady things Starmer is involved in behind the scenes. The Lord Ali scandal was big enough to tank Starmer's reputation and destroy any credibility he had left. It's as if Starmer is trying to further ruin Labour's reputation with these idiotic actions. The Tories, on the other hand, have a very different and, frankly, unexpected view of the whole situation.
Actually, we heard from our commentator there a minute ago, Matthew Torbett, saying that we should be encouraging Elon Musk to give money to end homelessness rather than to give it to Reform UK. What do you think about this row about whether there should be preventative measures to stop foreign donations? Are you relaxed about it, or is it something that you worry about?
Yeah, I'm pretty relaxed about it. I mean, there are rules in place in terms of foreign donors. But if there's a UK company involved, then it's deemed appropriate that money can be donated to a political party. So clearly that's a decision for those people whose money it is.
Surprisingly enough, the Tories aren't insecure about the whole matter the way Starmer and his gang are. According to the current rules of this country, there's nothing wrong with what Musk and Farage are doing, as it's a simple, transparent and public donation. Certainly not on the same level as the shady backdoor stuff Starmer gets up to. While Starmer has a mental breakdown over the matter, the Tories are focusing on something else entirely.
Personally, I think there are more important things in politics than money. I think the most important thing that people will make a decision on who they choose to vote for is the leadership qualities of the person who is leading their party. And that's why I think Kemi Badenoch is the right person to lead our party, because she's a bold, optimistic, inspirational person.
It's clearly not a big deal for them, as there are far more important things in winning elections than just money. What's more is that money isn't the only help Farage is getting from Musk. In fact, in a recent interview, Richard Tice, the deputy leader of Reform, dropped a bombshell about the extent of Musk's involvement. Meanwhile, the Conservatives are confident in Kemi Badenoch and think that she's the perfect change that their struggling party needed. The Tories took a massive hit this election and they don't seem to be recovering. As for Labour, needless to say that everyone despises them.
Because a lot of people think that perhaps Nigel Farage is the leading opposition politician. Many Americans, and perhaps the Trump administration, thinks that as well.
Well, look, I mean, you talked about local elections earlier. Look at the local election results we've had since the general election. You've seen Labour in free fall. They lost 27 seats. We have gained 24 seats. And many of those seats when we fought against Reform. I think Reform have got 7 seats, Lib Dems 1, or gained 1. So
whether the Tories like it or not, Nigel Farage is the one whom Labour is so terrified about. Starmer is probably losing sleep over what's coming for him in the next election. Nobody really trusts the Tories anymore, and Kemi Badenoch is far too passive. She's nowhere to be seen and isn't getting nearly as much support and attention as Nigel Farage is. Even Elon Musk is supporting Reform UK, a much newer party, over the Tories. What does that tell you about the potential results of the next elections? Labour knows it, and the sabotage doesn't just end here. They're actively trying to delay the council elections. That's how scared Starmer is.
Are you worried about that in terms of people having a say at the ballot box?
Well, always. I mean, people deserve their say. And I'm worried about the plans generally in terms of scrapping local councils. I mean, effectively, Labour government have come in, having not said they would do this, and they're going to scrap every district council, every county council in England. And they're going to make that happen. They're going to force that upon local areas. I think that's the wrong thing to do.
Starmer and his gang are trying to run over this nation and do whatever comes to their mind. They're so desperate for power that they will go to any length, and that is why Starmer is behaving like a third world dictator. Labour aren't even trying to hide it anymore, and everyone knows that they're openly trying to sabotage Reform UK. In fact, it has gotten so obvious that Elon Musk and Nigel Farage are furious and they're planning an insane revenge for them. Humiliating Starmer publicly is just the beginning, and Farage is ramping up his approach with secret help from Elon Musk.
I think if you look at all this, if you connect the dots in terms of what Labour is doing, the family farms tax, in terms of the scrapping of something called the Rural Services Delivery Grant, which it gives much needed funding for rural areas, in terms of plonking all the houses in rural areas, in Greenbelt and Greenfield.
Labour is going through a major downfall. They're already in crisis mode and doing everything they can to do damage control. In fact, just look at how the past 5 months have been. Starmer and his gang have betrayed every single promise and pledge they've made. At this point, Labour's manifesto is nothing other than a bad joke. They are clobbering the farmers, freezing the pensioners, ruining businesses with their horrible budget, and making life miserable for all of us.
I turned the oil tank around. The oil tanker was already turned around. What they've done is sunk the bloody thing. I mean, it's Christ almighty. I mean, our economy is the fastest growing economy in the world's, in the G7, which is the world's biggest economies. And that was the first 6 months of the year. Since when the Labour, all the gloom and doom, if you heard it again there from Lucy Powell, all the gloom and doom, and then massive tax increases and massive more public spending, £70 billion of increase in public spending.
All that damage control is backfiring as Labour is plummeting in the polls. Their number one excuse about inheriting a badly damaged country was completely destroyed by Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage. Thankfully, so far, the Tories and Reform have teamed up to throw this delusional government out. The truth of the matter is that the country was in a growing state. We had the fastest growing economy in the G7. While the Starmer continues to seethe, Reform are putting their secret plan in motion with the help of Elon Musk. You wouldn't believe how well prepared they are, and Richard is starting to reveal them.
So, talks yesterday, Nigel Farage meeting along with Nick Candy, your new donor, come over from the Tories. He's already pledged to give you a 7-figure sum. Meeting with Elon Musk, talking about funding for the Reform UK party. $100 million is a number that got mentioned at one point.
That was a number plucked out of thin air by the Sunday Times, who I think was sort of a bit short of space.
Nick Candy, former supporter for the Tories, defected to Reform, and now he's their treasurer. Nick Candy believes in Reform and is now raising funds for them, promising to bring in a whopping £40 million. On top of all that, he and Farage met up with Elon Musk to come up with a detailed strategy to win over the people of this nation and continue the momentum that Reform UK has. Labour is shaking in fear because if Elon Musk ends up donating as well, Reform will have enough funding to completely run over Labour and the Tories. But why is Musk doing all of this?
Let's be clear. Elon Musk loves the United Kingdom, the home of English-speaking nations. He's got serious business interests here, whether it's X, whether it's Tesla, whether it's Starlink, and he wants the United Kingdom to do well. He wants our economy to grow, and he recognises that Labour's a catastrophe and that Britain needs reform in every sense, and that's why he's been speaking to Nigel, met our new treasurer, Nick Candy, and, you know, he's put out there on X that, you know, we've got to turn this country around. We've got to reform our country.
The answer is simple. Elon Musk has great respect for the nation, and it's a damn shame that Starmer is dead set on ruining it with all his might. Time and time again, Elon Musk has slammed Starmer for being completely incompetent and a weak two-tier leader with no backbone of his own. Nobody wants to see this country ruined, and that is why Musk and Farage are so intently opposing him. To do that, they've come up with a plan, and it's simply brilliant.
His ability to, you know, use X, his social media company, to actually, you know, push some of the arguments, push some of the debates. How important a role would that play for you?
Absolutely vital, because he had an interesting discussion with Nigel about tech, about how to get those people who are not registered to vote, to get them on the voting list.
That was a key thing in the Brexit campaign, wasn't it?
It was a key thing in Brexit, but it was a key thing in the swing states in the recent presidential election in the state.
Farage is aiming to target those people who don't vote at all and win over the rest of the potential votes. He's doing so with the help of Elon Musk, who already did it successfully in the United States. Trump won a spectacular victory, and by the looks of it, Farage might as well too. He's simply promising common sense, and many people, especially the younger new generation of our country, love him for it. Meanwhile, Starmer is doing everything that he can to undermine our democracy and furthering his socialist agenda. He's trying to chain us back to the European Union, and literally everyone sees it as a horrible idea.
The EU's not doing very well economically. Germany is in recession, heading south sadly fast. Why would you want to re-hitch yourself or reset yourself closer to a failing economic model, a failing migration model, when actually America is growing? Maybe we should learn some lessons.
The European Union is an absolute mess, and that's because they are more motivated by ideological nonsense rather than any logic and reasoning. Even the countries that used to be the champions of the European Union, like Germany, are struggling, and Starmer's brilliant idea is to throw us headfirst into that. Meanwhile, Farage is arguing that we should build closer ties with America instead. But of course, Starmer and his gang are too busy throwing that away just because Trump says mean things to him sometimes.
Yeah, we know what their pledges in their manifesto are like. I mean, basically, if you believe the opposite, you'll probably get somewhere near the truth. Look, it would be a catastrophe for us to do any of those things, but in a sense, it would also be a gift to reform if they do, because it'll just move more people our way, more people who voted Brexit or see the benefits of the opportunity of Brexit if you do the job properly.
Starmer's manifesto is a bunch of delusional and dishonest lies. Of course, Farage and Elon Musk are glad that Starmer is continuing to set fire to the Labour Party, as it just makes it that much easier for them to win. At the rate at which things are going, Labour won't be winning another election for at least another decade. They've made complete fools of themselves. On the other side, Musk and Trump are schooling Starmer on how to actually run a government.
Absolutely, and I hope that Mr. Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are very successful in that and show us, again, a great example, because the truth is, I think America will be growing at 3.5% a year. We'll be flatlining at best. And people who scratch their head, oh, I wonder how they did that. Maybe they got cheap energy by drill, baby, drill. Maybe they cut daft regulations. Maybe they cut swathes of daft commissions and quangos that we don't need at all. And that gives you the ability to reduce taxes, to make work pay.
Everything that a government should do, Musk and Trump are doing. The good news is that they're willing to help us do the same. The bad news is that Starmer lives in a delusional fantasy land and is too tone deaf to listen to anyone. Our energy bills are through the roof, and this government is making it worse. Our economy is struggling, and Rachel Reeves is making it worse. Starmer has brought this nation to its knees, and it's our job to make him listen and hold him accountable. That is something you can help out with by liking this video and subscribing to the channel.